Then, figuratively speaking, I shattered the glass, and boldly imagined, for I was drunk on those visions by then, and underrated the gentleness of my nature, how eventually I might blackmail—no, that is too strong a word—mauve-mail Big Hayes into letting me consort with Little Hayes by gently threatening the poor doting big dove with desertion if she tried to bar me from playing with my legal stepdaughter. In a word, before such an amazing offer, before such a vastness and variety of vistas, I was as helpless as Adam in the preview of early Oriental history, miraged in his apple orchard. And now take down the following important remark. The artist in me has been given the upper hand over the gentleman. It is with great effort of will that in this memoir I have managed to tune my style to the tone of the journal that I kept when Mrs. Hayes was to me but an obstacle. That journal of mine is no more, but I have considered it my artistic duty to preserve its intonations no matter how false and brutal they may seem to me now. Fortunately, my story has reached a point where I can cease insulting poor Charlotte for the sake of retrospective verisimilitude. Wishing to spare poor Charlotte 2 or 3 hours of suspense on a winding road, and avoid perhaps a head-on collision that would shatter our different dreams, I made a thoughtful but abortive attempt to reach her at the camp by telephone. She had left half an hour before, and getting low instead, I told her, trembling and brimming with my mastery over fate, that I was going to marry her mother. I had to repeat it twice because something was preventing her from giving me her attention. "Gee, that's swell," she said, laughing. "When's the wedding? Hold on a sec, the pup. That pup here's got the hold of my sock. Listen." And she added she guessed she was going to have loads of fun. And I realized as I hung up that a couple of hours at that camp had been sufficient to blot out with new impressions the image of handsome Humbert from little Lolita's mind. But what did it matter now? I would get her back as soon as a decent amount of time after the wedding had elapsed. The orange blossom would have scarcely withered on the grave, as a poet might have said. But I am no poet. I am only a very conscientious recorder. After Louise had gone, I inspected the icebox, and finding it much too puritanic, walked to town and bought the richest foods available. I also bought some good liquor, and 2 or 3 kinds of vitamins. I was pretty sure that with the aid of these stimulants and my natural resources, I would avert any embarrassment that my indifference might incur when called upon to display a strong and impatient flame. Again and again resourceful Humbert evoked Charlotte as seen in the rari show of a manly imagination. She was well-groomed and shapely, this I could say for her, and she was my Lolita's big sister. This notion, perhaps, I could keep up if only I did not visualize too realistically her heavy hips, round knees, ripe bust, the coarse pink skin of her neck, coarse by comparison with silk and honey, and all the rest of that sorry and dull thing, a handsome woman. The sun made its usual round of the house. As the afternoon ripened into evening, I had a drink, and another, and yet another. Gin and pineapple juice, my favourite mixture, always double my energy. I decided to busy myself with our unkempt lawn, une petite attention. It was crowded with dandelions, and a cursed dog, I loathe dogs, had defiled the flat stones where a sundial had once stood. Most of the dandelions had changed from suns to moons. The gin and Lolita were dancing in me, and I almost fell over the folding chairs that I attempted to dislodge. Incarnadine zebras. There are some eructations that sound like cheers, at least mine did. An old fence at the back of the garden separated us from the neighbours' garbage receptacles and lilacs, but there was nothing between the front end of our lawn, where it sloped along one side of the house, and the street. Therefore I was able to watch, with the smirk of one about to perform a good action, for the return of Charlotte. That tooth should be extracted at once. As I lurched and lunged with the hand-mower, bits of grass optically twittering in the low sun, I kept an eye on that section of suburban street. It curved in from under an archway of huge shade trees, then sped towards us down, quite sharply, past old Miss Opposite's ivied brick house and high-sloping lawn, much trimmer than ours, and disappeared behind our own front porch, which I could not see from where I happily belched and laboured. The dandelions perished. A reek of sap mingled with the pineapple. two little girls, Marian and Mabel, whose comings and goings I had mechanically followed of late, but who could replace my Lolita, went toward the avenue from which our lawn street cascaded, one pushing a bicycle, the other feeding from a paper bag, both talking at the top of their sunny voices. Leslie, old Miss Opposite's gardener and chauffeur, a very amiable and athletic negro, grinned at me from afar and shouted, re-shouted, commented by gesture that I was mighty energetic today. The fool dog of the prosperous junk dealer next door ran after a blue car, not Charlotte's. The prettier of the two little girls, Mabel, I think, shorts halter with little to halt, bright hair, a nymphette by Pan, ran back down the street, crumpling her paper bag, and was hidden from this green goat by the frontage of Mr. and Mrs. Humbert's residence. A station wagon popped out of the leafy shade of the avenue, dragging some of it on its roof before the shadows snapped, and swung by at an idiotic pace, the sweat-shirted driver roof-holding with his left hand, and the junkman's dog tearing alongside. There was a smiling pause, and then, with a flutter in my breast, I witnessed the return of the blue sedan. I saw it glide downhill and disappear behind the corner of the house. I had a glimpse of her calm, pale profile. It occurred to me that until she went upstairs she would not know whether I had gone or not. A minute later, with an expression of great anguish on her face, she looked down at me from the window of Lowe's room. By sprinting upstairs I managed to reach that room before she left it.